I recorded the puppy bowl.
What the heck was that about?
It was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
That was a waste of.
It's to get the puppies off.
I literally started crying.
And they have a dog bowl too, so like the dog.
They had an
Say you
armadillo
want
on
to
the
watch it.
There were goats too, and a hamster.
And the hamster. Yeah, the powers the whole stadium. Whoa.
And then they had these videos about them.
Yeah, I love my medical needs. They actually have like, I was my favorite time watching it today.
The sheet that you did on Friday, and I thought you were putting good responses down. So this isn't trying to be like a trick question, you know, to be like, ooh, that was the bad answer that someone selected. Recall any tones that you were mentioning. As to, like, it was on the back. I think it was like the first question on the back of the page. Like, if you describe the overall tone of the story, what would be a word that you would use to describe? And there were some good options that people were listing. Anyone recall what they put down? Remember the puppy bowl, but you don't remember a tone word.
I didn't watch the movie.
Good. You're one of the fortunate ones.
What's so bad about it?
Grace? Cynical? Yeah. Cynical was one. There's another C word that was kind of getting used a decent bit. Go along with cynical. Condescending. And then there was an S term that was getting used a fair amount. Morgan didn't use that one again. Yeah, it was like satirized, satirical, something along those lines. Why I mentioned those, and again, this isn't me trying to go, I want you to write about this story, because it's up to you, but honestly, this would probably work for both stories, whichever you decide to use. What's your thesis statement going to look like so far as structure, format, since it's going to be rhetorical analysis? It's going to be a SPA, so you're going to go strategy, purpose, argument. With taking a look at condescending, cynical, satirical, what could be some good purpose words that you decide to use? You know, device coming into whatever the devices are. Okay, so and not saying that we have to absolutely go with that one, but yes, satirize would certainly be one that you could use if it's being condescending or criticize, condemn. Anything else? Johnny has a look of, this is Monday morning, what are we doing? Depending how that's going to be worded, maybe expose, so far as maybe like some flaws of humanity that would overall exist. But because you are going to be doing strategy, purpose, argument, since these were already kind of getting mentioned as a tone, these could certainly be appropriate words in which we would be using besides illustrate, demonstrate. Obviously not going to go along with the idea of shows and stuff like that, but it could be a word that certainly would help. If you decide to go with satirize, again, not that you have to, but remember, satire tends to have a lot of irony, tends to have a lot of exaggeration, or that could be understatement that would be going, that might lead you into some devices that you could potentially look at. But these would certainly be appropriate terms that would probably get looked at for a lot of different types of rhetorical analysis that would work with either short story. So I just wanted to make sure we were okay with that stuff before we got too far. You didn't like the sheet you were doing yesterday? I didn't write it. You and Mrs. Trainer had a good time?
We like hijacked your classroom. We were playing music and everything. Smooth piano jazz. It was crazy. It was wild. It was out of control.
Mr. Tipko does big band music for like 1920s when they write some stuff. We could try that. All right, so I want to do two things for sure. I want to touch on Grandma and Red Salmon. I want to touch on Grandma and conversation with openness. Be nice if I had barbecue sandwiches.
I'm sorry, Mr. B. Really, I tried and I just couldn't come through till lunch.
We had some on Saturday. So.
No.
Details about conversation. We're seeing conversation, location, any kind of little aspects that are going on. What remember with Grandma Red Sammy? Ethan?
Maybe like the tone of like this fellowship.
Okay, yeah, that'd be pretty good. Kind of remembering the good old days. Didn't have to lock your screen door. You know, people were good people back then. Didn't have the misfit running around.
I know she looked at Red Sammy and said, "You're a good man."
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time that came up, and then he comes back later and there's a good man.
You're a good man. Yes, I am. Not many of us around. Virginia, do you have?
I was gonna say the signs always say he's like happy and laughing, but when you actually see him, he doesn't seem very happy. He's kind of like
Okay. And kind of like that nostalgic tone plays off of it because the present day is so, you know, horrible and rotten and going to hell in a handbasket type thing that we have to kind of talk about the good old days. And certainly Grandma plays off of that pretty much as well. But and the kids aren't really being nice kids necessarily while they're in the restaurant and all that kind of stuff. They're kind of being their normal brats and all that kind of stuff that would be going on. Where are they? Besides Red Sammy's. They're not in Toonsboro yet. They're actually, there's another T town that they have. So they're in Timothy. And the name of the building gets referenced about 3 or 4 times in short succession of one another. I think on page 12? Yep. Yeah, on page 12, towards the bottom of the page. Okay, Timothy and the town. If you have Red Sammy and Grandma, both are going to be older individuals compared to like Bailey and wife and rest of the family. Kind of talking about the good old days and that nostalgic tone about how, you know, you're a good person. There's not kind of many of us that would be around. How could you kind of describe, besides nostalgic, that's a good word to certainly go with it, what would kind of be a tone of their conversation where the two of them are going to be speaking about how terrible things are, but there's not many good people like us around, and that's a shame, because back in the good old days, everything would be hunky-dory, yay. Elitist?
Yeah, elitist kind of, like we're better. And like they're on the tower, like they're the best.
I think a word go along, not saying that elitist would be wrong, but yeah, elitist would be good. Okay, an illusion? Like an eye? Arrogant would be a term that could kind of get used around along with it. I don't think you would have mentioned this word last year with Caesar. You may have. Any H terms get thrown around for arrogance? Greek drama would use this term a lot, but you guys didn't read any Greek plays. Hubris, yeah. And so hubris is going to be arrogance that basically leads to some kind of downfall. You know, that's going to happen. So Red Sammy sells his best sandwiches. Shay sandwiches that are better. So no one's going to buy his sandwiches. Downfall for him. No profits. All the money, glory for you. That's why you're wearing red.
Yes.
Red Shays. If you're going to a restaurant, what's the name of your restaurant be?
If I had a barbecue restaurant.
Any restaurant.
Any restaurant. Yes. It would definitely have to start with like yield.
Sweeney Todd's.
I know. We had a restaurant yesterday. My Girl Scout troop. We had to make dinner for a younger troop, and it was Anna, Asia, and I, and that girl from another sports trip. And our
That could be the name of your restaurant. Anna Asian.
our restaurant was called La Soup.
Because Asia
Johnny
maybe not
D's.
meant to.
La barbecue.
Sarah, what'd you say about elitist and tower? What was your little link?
No, it would be a Western Italian restaurant. It's
Your MLA teacher would prefer that it be called the noodle bib. Noodle tools. Noodle. And then you get a little bib when you go in right there. That'd be good.
Just lost
That'd be
all
good.
humor in my life. Strange. Everyone is like that.
What do we know about O'Connor as a writer when it comes to the stuff that she's going to throw in so far as devices? And again, not that you have to use it, but what does she tend to use a fair amount of? She uses a lot of ambiguity, or ambiguity, as more and more people are saying. I think everyone in here can pronounce the word correctly. She does a lot of ambiguity, does a lot of imagery, but then we mentioned things like hotspot from the previous story, shiplet being carpenter, crooked cross. There's a lot of kind of like that religious illusion stuff that goes on as well. Now what are you doing? Okay. What's the Tower of Babel?
It was when like all the people in the world were like, I want to build a tower up to the heavens, and then God was like, no, I'm gonna make you start speaking all different languages so you can't work together.
Is it what was the first word out of your mouth when you were a little kid?
It's mostly really intelligent and smart.
Or unintelligible? One of the two. So, story for Tower of Babel is there is giving you, overall background for it. It's an Old Testament, tale where the humans want to get up onto the same level as God, so they build a tower. How tall this tower would be, who knows? Archaeologists believe that if they were to make a tower, it probably would have been like cone shaped, so there would be like big ramp that would just keep going and going and going, kind of like a spiral. So, just like Govinda says, hey, we're not going in circles, we're spiraling upwards. That's kind of like how the Tower of Babel would have been going. However, it does not go well, and God is not happy, so thunderbolts, lightning, and all that kind of stuff, and destruction happens. And then what happens is the universal language gets destroyed, and no longer, and everyone speaks in different tongues. So when you have unintelligible Izza talking to unintelligible Libby as little kids, what do we say that they're doing to one another? How they're speaking? They are babbling. Yeah, that's the etymology of where babbling comes from. It comes from the Tower of Babel. It's like diddles. There's like a lot of, serious etymological background to all this stuff. So, it's there. So yeah, the idea of babbling comes from Tower of Babel. So you have this restaurant that's getting mentioned over and over and over again as the building is within the tower. And it's one thing to say that, okay, it gets mentioned as the tower once and then that's it. But within about those couple paragraphs on page 12, you get like 3, 4, 5 references to the Tower Cup happening over and over again. And certainly this elitist arrogance, kind of illusions that they have about the world around them would lend some credibility to the idea that, have this Tower of Babel where these people are basically going to get punished. We don't know what happens to Red Sammy, other than Shay's restaurant beats him out. We do know what happens to Grandma. She's gone. And part of that idea could be that what is her downfall, that overall arrogance, that overall hubris that she has. And we'll certainly kind of get into that scene. Morgan correctly identified the town in which they are in at this point is Timothy. I don't know if O'Connor does this purposely or not, but it seems like she's layering quite a few things here. Timothy is actually a book in the New Testament. It's Paul writing a letter to Timothy. If we had Johnny in the Bible, it would be a letter from Paul to Johnny. The book of Isaiah. Waiting for you to have like a waiting or something. What the letter? There's First Timothy and there's Second Timothy. Timothy's setting up churches in different places, so it's letters about how to do that. But in First Timothy, he's basically sending him almost kind of like instructions on what it means to be a good man. this is how you're supposed to behave towards God. This is how you should treat your parents. This is how you should treat your children. So be respectful to your parents. Teach your children to be obedient. All that kind of stuff that June Star and John Wesley aren't, for the most part. Be humble and whatnot. So as he's giving him basically instructions of ideas as how he should act as he's setting up various churches throughout the world and whatnot. But it's reminders of what it means to kind of be a good man. So you have people who are not really being good people, who are on their pedestal, who are being arrogant, kind of talking, reminiscing about the good old days. And most time when you talk about the good old days, if you are the younger generation, the good old days sound pretty terrible for the most part. They're probably not as good as they used to be. Although 20 years ago was a good time, Shay. Much better. Well, we'll say 25. Before we got into those twos. By the way, yesterday, 02.
Oh yeah, and then it was the 33rd day, and there were 333 more days in the year.
It's crazy.
Yay.
There will be another one in 21-21, I think.
Yeah.
So I won't be there for that. Maybe you guys will. Yeah.
Year in the year 2021.
No, 21-21.
Oh.
I mean, you're going to be like 120, but I don't think I will be.
I don't think we'll be sad.
I have faith that one of you will still be here, Morgan.
Be like 100.
You can do it.
No, 120.
Telling me you can't reach 120? You can do it.
Probably be like
So, with everything that we have going on here with the tower and talking about before from the previous page about, here's some tones with some satirizing, condemning, criticizing, exposing, things of that nature, there certainly could be some exposure to maybe these people aren't really as good as they necessarily think that they are. Okay? Now, Grandma, Misfit. What do you think about Misfit? Besides the obvious, he kills people.
He's not that bad.
Kind of feels weird to say that. Not that bad.
Reminds me of the Punisher.
Yeah. No, I can see it.
In that,
Well, the Punisher's all like, well, the mafia killed my family, so I'm going to kill all the mafia. Like, it's sort of like a justice sort of thing going on there. And sort of like some anti-hero vibes.
and like saying this, not that his rationale makes perfect sense and is reasonable, but something that he's kind of looking for in the world to a certain extent is, some fairness. It's not right the way that I was kind of being treated and things along that nature. They don't have enough papers on me. I didn't kill my dad and all those things that he says. Now, we don't know if that's the case or not, but he certainly at least feels that he is wrong. And so therefore, because everything is thrown off balance, this is the kind of world that we're going to live in. Fair is fair. Oh, well, what are you going to do about it? What else? Not that bad. What do you think about that statement?
I think grandma's disillusioned sometimes talking to this group. But at the same time, I do feel bad for her just about being the grandkids are to her.
See, Grandma's a bad person until she knows she's gonna die, then she tries to be all saint-like.
So why is he better than Grandma? Why is he better than Grandma?
Because at least he has his own conviction and he sticks to it the whole time. Whereas she says multiple different things and has multiple different beliefs when it's convenient for her.
Whether they're right or wrong is debatable. Or some of us might be going, no, it's really not debatable. But at the very least, he sticks to it. He is what he is. He's in some ways an authentic individual. There's no surprises. You pretty much know what you're going to get. There's not a whole lot of suspense as to what's going to happen to Grandma probably in the long run based on what's happened to everyone else in the family. It's just waiting that, hey, this is what's eventually going to happen. When you guys did your discussion board posting, was the last line, she would have been a good woman if someone were there to shoot her every moment of her life. What's he mean by that?
She's a bad person until she knows that she's gonna die, and then she's trying to save herself by being all good and saintly and
Right. If she wanted to be that way, she should have been doing that before she knew she
Okay, so essentially the idea that grandma is two-faced, like too strong, or
Well, at the end, she seems like desperate to be seen as that like lady that because it keeps bringing it up too. Like she wears like the nice dresses and the flowers, so that if anybody sees her, they know she's a lady.
so she's desperate to be viewed as a lady. She's not desperate to actually be a lady. And yeah, if anyone were to find her along the side of the road, they would know this is a lady. Foreshadowing, foreshadowing, foreshadowing. Hey, let's drive by a tombstone graveyard. There's 5 or 6 of them. There's 6 people in the family. Oh well, this isn't going to go well. Let's start this thing out.
I thought it was kind of funny how she said to
You
Miss
hear
Fit.
her? Funny.
Very funny. I don't know. I just thought it was funny how she said to Miss Fit, we're not that different. Like we're pretty similar people.
You're one of my babies.
So you shouldn't kill me because we're the same.
You got good blood. And people will ask, and when she does that whole "you're one of my babies" line, like, what does she really mean by it? And there's a couple different things you could certainly argue about it. Number one, she's desperate to live, and she's disillusioned at this point, doesn't really know what's going on. You'll pretty much say anything to anyone at this point. The other thing, anyone recall what the Misfit's wearing when this is happening? Has on Bailey's shirt. So before he didn't have a shirt, then he takes Bailey's parrot shirt, and so it could be that she's looking at the shirt and kind of seeing Bailey at that point, and who knows what's going on in her mind? That you're one of my babies. Some of that confusion could be going on. The idea that the Misfit is like the long lost child Bailey's brother has killed, Bailey and his whole entire family. You can pretty much eliminate that idea from your head. So it's probably more of I'll say whatever I can in order to try to survive at this overall point. You got good blood. You wouldn't shoot a lady. Would you shoot a lady? Probably.
Loaded question.
I mean, it depends.
No, it's not. You can say no.
I mean,
Depends on
yeah,
the
but
lady.
why does it depend?
Mr. Pete, would you shoot a lady?
Did you say loaded? Because of like shooting.
Would you shoot a lady?
No.
Shame. Shame.
Are we talking like Nerf guns?
Oh.
I mean,
What if
All right, I shoot a lady with a Nerf gun.
What if the lady had killed off half the population with some kind of virus and you had the chance to shoot her? Would
So
you
the
Natural
lady
selection.
now, since we're doing logical fallacy, now we're doing productive ad absurdum, where we're getting to like crazy,
Or what if she
If
said
the
she
lady
was
was
reduced to the absurd.
She's not a lady
What if she
anymore.
said
She's
that
being the pregnancy.
That was a good escape clause there.
No, but like the Misfit's still a gentleman. He's still like a
He believes herself to be a
like
gentleman.
I don't know.
On page 20. Along with the Misfit, the grandmother found that she had lost her voice, that there was not a cloud in the sky nor any sun, and there was nothing around her but woods. She wanted to tell him that he must pray. She opened and closed her mouth several times before anything came out, and finally she found herself saying, Jesus, Jesus, meaning Jesus will help you, but the way she was saying it, it sounded as if she might be cursing. Yes'm, the Misfit said, as if he agreed. Jesus shown everything off balance. It was the same case with him as with me, except he hadn't committed any crime, and they could prove I had committed one because they had the papers on me, of course. So, Misfit, Jesus. They're the same.
Yep.
Nice little parallel. Because Shay, everyone has to be. No.
I'll write it.
That'll be the end of the year. Of course, he said, they never show me my papers. That's why I sign myself now. I said long ago, you get a signature and sign everything you do and keep a copy of it. Then you'll know what you've done and you can hold up the crime to the punishment and see do they match. And in the end, you'll have something to prove you ain't being treated right. I call myself the Misfit, he said, because I can't make what all I done wrong fit and that all I gone through in punishment. Johnny, don't sign your papers. There was a piercing scream from the woods, followed closely by a pistol report. Does it seem right to you, lady, that one is punished a heap and another ain't punished at all? Jesus, the old lady cried. You've got good blood. I know you wouldn't shoot a lady. I know you come from nice people. Pray, Jesus, you ought not to shoot a lady. I'll give you all the money I've got. Lady, the misfit said, looking beyond her, far into the woods. Best line in literature. There was never a body that gave the undertaker a tip. There were two more pistol reports, and the grandmother raised her head like a parched old turkey hen crying for water and called, Bailey boy, as if her heart would break. Jesus was the only one that ever raised the dead, the misfit continued, and he shouldn't have done it. He's shown everything off balance. If he did what he said, then it's nothing for you to do but throw away everything and follow him. And if he didn't, then it's nothing for you to do but enjoy the last few minutes you got left the best way you can by killing somebody or burning down his house or doing some other meanness to him. No pleasure but meanness, he said, and his voice had become almost a snarl. Maybe he didn't raise the dead, the old lady mumbled, not knowing what she was saying and feeling so busy that she sank down in the ditch and her legs twisted under her. I wasn't there, so I can't say he did it, the misfit said. I wished I had been there, he said, hitting the ground with his fist. It ain't right. I wasn't there, because if I had have been there, I would have known. Listen, lady, he said in a high voice. If I had have been there, I would have known, and I wouldn't be like I am now. His voice seemed about to crack, and the grandmother's head cleared for an instant. She saw the man's twisted face twisted close to her own, as if he were going to cry, and she murmured, Why, you're one of my babies. You're one of my own children. She reached out and touched him on the shoulder, and the misfit sprang back as if a snake had bitten him and shot her 3 times through the chest. Then he put his gun down on the ground and took off his glasses and began to clean the road. Any details, whether it be events, placement, words, that kind of taking notice of?
I think he's just trying to make the point that it's like, it doesn't matter where my family came from. I'm like individual of that, and I can be my own person. So like when she said you come from good blood, like just because I come from good blood doesn't mean I'm not capable of being a bad person.
Okay, so kind of like Misfit's thought. An individual is separate from the family, kind of thing. All right, Sarah.
I think it was definitely like interesting as like almost this thing of like everything's off balance, but if I could see it, then I would do it because I did it. This is why I am. It's like almost like an excuse for like this is why I am the way I am.
Okay, so kind of I know you said excuse, but not that he's using it as an excuse, but kind of the rationale for this is the way I am.
This is why I am the way I am.
And again, doesn't mean that we agree with it, but that there's a reasoning there. Anything else? The syntax drives me crazy in the middle of the page when grandmother's talking. Any guesses as to why? Halfway down page 20, the syntax bothers me. No. But it would relate back to the whole ambiguity idea.
I don't know if this is it, but it stuck out to me that she said you're one of my children, but it said in the beginning that her only child was Bailey,
Mm-hmm.
and so if she only has one, then
And I said, like, it's not like a long lost
Yeah.
child, but what does she mean when she says you're one of my babies? Theoretically, what could she mean? I mean, if she is a really good Christian woman, which I think all of you said she's not, although I didn't read yours with that question. If she is a good Christian woman, she could be going, you're one of my children, and that we're all part of, the one big family, under God and all that kind of stuff. It could be going that that's what she's saying, but she doesn't actually mean it based on, actions that she has throughout the course of her life. So that could be part of it. It could be that she's totally disillusioned. You're one of my babies. Shay's not one of my babies. But if, in that moment right before death, who knows what's going on, through someone's head.
So there's the part that says, Jesus, you ought not to shoot a lady, where it's like, she's saying, like, kind of like calling out to Jesus and then telling the misfit, you ought not to shoot a lady, but she could also be like, you, Jesus, you should not shoot a lady.
Yeah, it goes, Jesus, exclamation point, the old lady cried. You've got good blood. I know you wouldn't shoot a lady. I know you come from nice people. hey, Jesus, you ought not to shoot a lady. I'll give you all the money I've got. It's weird. That's all I could say about it. Because if you do a pronoun antecedent, like if this were an AP passage, which it won't be because it's fiction, but if you were doing a pronoun antecedent and you were just looking at this, what does you refer to? In an ambiguous sense, it would refer back to Jesus. Now, you could be going Jesus as if it sounds like we're cursing or earlier, like, geez, you wouldn't shoot a lady, would you, Morgan? You know, come on, geez, you wouldn't do that. So, you know, certainly it could be kind of referencing that other way, but the way it's written, it's kind of ambiguous as to, is she calling him Jesus? Or is she, like, in her mind talking to Jesus that you won't let me die kind of right now?
I gotta write this down for my essay at the end of the year. This is good
This is the one that's going to rip that page out, it's getting photocopied, take a picture with your phone, and then it's going. So you do have, like, some definite, I'll call it, like, syntactical ambiguity. With how that term Jesus is getting thrown around. If the possibility exists that, hey, would this kind of be, I hate how the page moves back down, then poor Grace can't see anything. There. Now we'll stay. Why do something like that? To mess with your minds, to put it on a coffee mug.
Well, you said that like in her life that she had like this. I'm sure the thought of like why me, like you wouldn't do this to me.
I'm a good person,
Like, yeah.
you know. Okay, so the kind of like that connection back to O'Connor. Or if you're not a good person, you can pray all you want. Boom, boom, boom. Because the other little detail that I think is interesting is as she goes to reach and touch him on the shoulder, he springs back as if he'd been bitten by a snake. Oh, well, she's jumping to Satan now. So, like, Shay has converted Abby to this whole stuff. But there's certainly, you know, serpent-like imagery that would be taking place that maybe this is revealing she's not a good lady. Not that Shay, this is very important, she's not talking to Jesus, okay? But she would have been a good lady if someone were there to shoot her every moment of her life. It could be her what moment that people will sometimes say. This is your coming to Jesus moment when you kind of find out who you are, what you're like, and in this moment, we're really kind of finding stuff out about you. Maybe the mystic is a good man. Maybe by shooting her, he saves her. And then Emma can go, I like him. It's okay.
I like them. It's not bad.
It's not bad.
It's bad, but it's like they're all
Johnny has not clarified whether or not he would really shoot a lady.
Johnny will come.